Welcome everybody to another episode of the SRU podcast with me and my guy Will Royal. How you doing today, Will?
Long day today. Thursday night football's on. My Houston Texans actually tied right now with Philly, which is a shocker, I know.
Yeah.
But with this crappy game out of the way, we can get onto some really good college football this weekend. And we've got some good games, and I'm ready to run through them.
Yeah, well, we got a special guest this week, another guest picker, and our boy, Mr. Luke Leon.
What's up, boys? What's up? What's up?
Luke, tell us a little bit. Tell us a little bit.
Yeah, my
Tell us
bad.
a little bit about your college football experience, what teams you grew up watching, and who's your team.
All right, so I grew up watching the Memphis Tigers because both my parents went to Memphis, so I grew up a Memphis fan. So shout out to the Tigers. I watched Memphis, but I went to the Air Force Academy, so I have two. Yeah, Bryce is repping. I got him that stuff. Hit me up for merch. So I kind of have two subpar football teams that I watch, but recently, Air Force is doing great. We got 3 10-win seasons in the past 4 years. Been to 2 bowl games, won both of them. So I mean, Air Force is doing good. Air Force is playing tomorrow, going to that game at Globe Life. That's fun. So we supporting the Falcons. Go Falcons.
Yeah. So we got a good slate of games, a lot of games that could determine what the college football playoffs will look like at the end of the year, especially on the SEC side. But we will start in the Big 12 with number 24 Texas going against Kansas State, number 13. And it's looking like Texas a 2.5-point favored in this game. We have Quinn Ewers, a guy that a lot of people thought would be in the Heisman race, who hasn't had that bad of a season, but he has been injured for a few games. He's 82 for 142 with 1,139 yards this season, 11 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, going against Adrian Martinez replacement, Will Howard, who's been having a great year so far since he's been starting. He's 34 for 57 with 521 yards, 6 touchdowns and 1 interception. But looking like Kansas is on ESPN is a pretty big actually, Texas is a favorite for this game, but Kansas State has been showing up the past few games. And for this game, I'm going to have to go with Kansas State just because how they played against Oklahoma State. Will, I'm pretty sure you might go the same route with me, but let me hear your pick.
And that is where you're wrong. I'm going to take Texas in this one.
Oh,
they are a 62% chance according to ESPN. Yes, Quinn Ewers is slightly better than Will Howard, or I don't know, we could see that this weekend. But I think it's going to come down to the running game, and I would choose Bijan Robinson over Deuce Vaughn. I know Deuce Vaughn was getting that hype up towards the beginning of the season, possibly being the best running back in the nation, but Bijan Robinson has done a lot better, in my opinion. And, per game, actually, I'm looking at this completely different. I know Kansas is going to rely more on Deuce Vaughn, but Texas only gives up about 200 rushing yard, about 120 rushing yards per game. So that's relatively low. So I think that defense is going to contain Deuce Vaughn, and they're going to contain that. Then I think they're going to really control secondary wise. And so I'm just going to take Texas, plain and simple.
Yeah. Luke, I don't know if you've been keeping up with either of these teams, but tell me what's your pick for this game.
Man, I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna go with Kansas State. Pretty much just what they did to Oklahoma State, and with Howard doing what he does right now, and plus revenge game in TCU, and plus Texas is just not fucking good at playing against ranked teams. They're just ass. They always shit the bed every time. So I'm gonna go with Kansas State.
All right.
There goes our PG rating for this episode.
Oh yeah, my bad. Also, JP's got his picks for the Texas.
Our boy
Texas
JP. Just to let y'all know that Luke is in Fort Worth at the moment.
As a resident Big 12 expert, I'm going to go with Texas on this one, setting up a match of destiny in Austin next week against the Frogs. K-State are frauds, low key. So.
Oh.
All
right. Hey, we got our Big 12 expert picking Texas on this one. It's kind of biased because TCU plays them next, and he wants that to be a bigger game. And it would be a good thing for TCU playing a ranked team, and it would help them make it into the playoffs picture. Well, they already are, but make it into that top 4. So Will, take us off with the second game.
Yeah, we're gonna take a quick hiatus from the Big 12. We're gonna go to the ACC for 21 Wake Forest traveling to Raleigh, take on 22 NC State. Wake Forest coming in as a 4-point favorite. NC State is actually a 59% chance on ESPN. So this is kind of, one way or the other. Your boy Sam Hartman is putting up 2,000 yards, 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. NC State had they lost Devin Leary a couple weeks ago, and they now have MJ Morris, who is only about 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. Running game wise, I like Wake Forest more. So I'm gonna take Wake Forest in this one. I'm gonna keep this one short because I don't really keep up with AC that much. So I think Wake Forest with Sam Hartman is just gonna tear apart this NC State team that's without Devin Leary.
Yeah. For me, you already know who I'm going with, Wake Forest, but they did have a little hiccup last week. I know my guy Sam Hartman threw like 3 interceptions last week, but I feel like this is going to be a bounce back week for them. They are a 4-point favorite, even though ESPN picking NC State. So I'm going to go Wake Forest. NC State did lose their starting quarterback in Devin Leary, and I think that's a huge blow. But I feel like Sam Hartman's offensively versus that good NC State defense is definitely going to win this game, in my opinion. Luke, who do you have?
I got Wake Forest. I think that NC State's a big problem team for pretty much every team that they face. But without Devin Leary, I'm just going to have to go with Hartman and the Demon Deacons.
All right. Hey, I like that pick. You have to go with my guy Sam Hartman. JP.
I'm going NC State at home.
Oh, hey, get him, Tiger. Hey, you already know this next game. It's a little close to home. Got them horny frogs. Go Frogs. TCU number 7 looking to make it into the playoffs against Texas Tech. Most people would say that TCU deserves to be in the top 4. They have had a tough schedule, Big 12, and you wouldn't really see that as a Big 12 schedule. And they also had a lot of tough games going in, winning in the second half and also in overtime. They are an 8.5-point favorite with a Heisman dark horse, Max Duggan, with 149 for 221 with 2,212 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. His second interception of the season was last game. He's going against Donovan Smith, who's 147 for 121, 1,505 yards with 12 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. You already know who I'm going with, TCU, in a big game against Texas Tech, who did upset Texas earlier in the season. Will, who do you have?
I'm only saying this because I am getting a Hypnotoad sticker in the future. No other reason. I'm kidding. TCU is going to just take over this game, I think. ESPN has them as a 77% chance of winning, and it is going to come down to Kendra Miller 100%. If he has a good game like he's had the last few weeks, then TCU is just going to absolutely dominate. If not, you still have, JP, correct me if I'm wrong, it's Quentin Johnson. Is that your
Quentin Johnson?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That he needs to just feed him the ball, and I'm taking the Frogs all the way. Horny Toads.
Luke, who do you have for this game?
I got the Frogs. Honestly, I think that the line is at -8.5 right now on Pick Center on ESPN, and I think that's disrespectful. I think TCU is going to put up at least 14 to 21 on Texas Tech. And if they don't, I think they have to, because if they don't, there's just no way that they're even going to be in the college football playoff picture at all. So I think this is a must win for them and a must win blowout for them. So I'd take the spread on TCU this weekend.
Hey, we like to hear that.
Yeah.
Too bad I can't go to this game. It is the same time as the next game we're going to talk about. JP, I know he has a little playoff rant.
JP, you got a playoff rant?
I actually have to put the headphones on for this one, guys. Okay. Here's what I'm saying. First of all, go Frogs. Second of all, I think the boys are essentially fed up with the disrespect being paid to us by the College Football Playoff Committee. I think it's frankly ridiculous that Clemson is in the top 5. I also, sorry, Will, could see a world in which we should be ranked versus over Alabama, but I'll let that one slide. I'm more mad about Clemson, to be honest, mostly just because I'd say we have better quality wins. We have better strength of schedule. The playoff committee's reasoning for putting them ahead of us was that we had to come back and win, but Clemson had to come back and win against Syracuse away and had to get bailed out by the refs to even, win the game, as well as having a few other comebacks earlier in the season. I really don't think their quarterback play is all that great. DJU's a good talent, don't get me wrong, but I think what you see from the TCU offense is explosiveness and consistency for the most part. And what you don't see from Clemson is sturdy quarterback play, where I think that's an area that Max Duggan has really, really improved in. Shout out to him, because a few years back, we were very convinced that he was not the guy. But it's incredible what a shift in ideology in the whole program and a shift in offensive play calling will get you, mostly just due to actually using the weapons that you have and using the talent that you have. In this game particularly, every game scares me a little bit, especially now that we're still 8-0. I think this is a game that, on paper looks like should be an easy win for us, but Tech is a good team. They've got dogs. They always have been dogs. They're known to give us a fight for that saddle. And I think that I really just hope we come out strong in the first half, because that's something we haven't done in the past few games. That's something that we really need to work on, because if we're going to be among these teams in the top 7, we're going to have to prove ourselves. And the only way we can prove ourselves is by playing a good full game instead of a good second half.
Yeah. Hey,
so that's something that concerns me. But
JP, I have said on our pod that TCU has a pretty nice defense for a Big 12 team.
Which is interesting. That's actually interesting to me, because as TCU fans, our thoughts coming into the season were, well, it's not that bad because our defense quite literally cannot get worse than it is right now.
Yeah.
We thought we were going to have a horrible defense. Got to give big props to Joe Gillespie. He seems like the king of halftime adjustments. We always end up shutting down teams in clutch time, which really works out well for us. We saw it last week against West Virginia. So I really have to give props to the coaching staff and Joe Gillespie from our new DC from Tulsa for that. Because he's really taken a defense that we really didn't think was going to do very much and made them very, very useful and very productive.
Yeah, I would describe y'all defense as a bend but not break defense.
Yes,
Sure.
very much so. And I do low key hope that we hurt another quarterback, because it's funny to see people cry about it on Twitter.
Jesus Christ.
It's part of the game, man. It's not dirty. We just play tough.
Hey, I was saying the same way with Arkansas when they broke down on Bryce Young. We needed that.
Yeah.
But our defense so bad, we literally gave the game away. But let's go to this next game.
Okay.
It's a game between two of our military groups, and Army versus Air Force. I had to rock with the Air Force. And we have a buddy who's also in the Air Force. Oh, I have a few buddies that's in the Air Force, Luke and my guy Turk Wigley.
We got a few in the Army too, so don't count them out now.
Oh yeah. Let's not do that either.
Yeah.
So Air Force is a 7.5 point favorite. I don't really know how to say their quarterback's name. I'm guessing it's Hazik Daniels with 27 for 57. All right. Before I get to naming all these stats, we gotta think about it. Both of these teams run some type of option. Like it's
right.
So the throwing and the passing is just not going to be there. So let me go back to this. 27 for 57 579 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception, 358 rushing yards, 4 rushing touchdowns. And that's for Air Force's quarterback, Cade Ballard, Army's quarterback, which is very surprising because Army had a pretty decent season last year, and this year they just hadn't showed up. They are 3-4. Cade is 18 for 35, 335 yards, 2 touchdowns in the air, 2 interceptions, 173 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown. So this will be a who can score more rushing touchdowns game. I feel like Air Force usually pulls out some type of trick throw play that will surprise everyone. But I can see Air Force winning by like 2 touchdowns in this game. And hopefully I am there for the entire game. But I can't wait to feel the atmosphere for this game.
I'm going to go ahead and make my pick so I can give it to our resident Air Force expert here. I'm going obviously with the Falcons. I'm not saying that because Luke might kill me. I'm saying that mostly because of what you just said. I think they have a more reliable pass if they need it. Their running game is really good too. I think other than a few blips in their season, mostly to Wyoming, they've been playing really well.
Yeah.
And so I do like Air Force in this game, but I think it will be a close game. It's a service academy rivalry game. Those are always close and always fun to watch. So I'm going to be keeping track of it in Amon G. Carter Stadium. You better believe that.
Yeah. Before Luke, before you give yours, let's hear Will's opinion because I want to see what you have to say on Air Force last. Will?
Yeah, I think it's without question Air Force is going to win this. By the way, I've been watching the Texans. They just let up a touchdown to AJ Brown, so sad. TCU is currently sitting at a 68% chance of winning according to ESPN. And outside of Zeke Daniels, I do like.
I mean, Air Force. You said TCU.
Sorry, I'm so fixated on
Yeah.
Air Force. I like Brad Roberts as your running back. He has almost 1,000 yards on the ground with 13 touchdowns. So I think Air Force is it's gonna be a game where if you're a fan of throwing the ball, you might as well just go ahead and watch something else. There is gonna be none of that this game. Maybe at most 6 total passes in this game. So, but I do like Air Force in this one pretty handily, and let's give it to Lieutenant. See what he says.
Lieutenant in the room. So I'm gonna talk about this right now. Army is complete booty cheeks this year, and Air Force is good. We've had a few blips. Boise State and Wyoming. Wyoming always puts up a good fight, especially when we play them at home like we did. And so they're always tough teams. We have kind of an inexplicable loss to Utah State. I don't even know how that happens. But right now, Hazik, I don't even want to talk about that game. But Hazik Daniels has shown promise. I mean, he's attempted more passes this season so far in this season than he has in any of his starting seasons so far, and he's actually been way better than he's supposed to. I mean, he has 5 touchdowns and only 1 interception when usually he has more interceptions than touchdowns on the season. So that's already telling you that our passing game is just amazing compared to Army's, which isn't saying a lot for a service academy game. But Brad Roberts is the Jesus Christ of our football team. Brad Roberts is back. He's healthy. He's running. He's got 13 touchdowns on the season. That's absolutely insane. He's one of the top running backs rushing yards wise and yards per carry wise in the nation, which is insane. Going up against T. Robinson for Army, he only has 1 touchdown and 300 yards this season. I mean, and not even to mention that Army is letting up over 212 yards of rushing alone a game this season against Air Force, which is currently ranked as the number 2 rushing offense in the nation. Come on. I mean, I know all we do is run the triple option, but baby, they ain't stopping it this time, even with their defensive line as weak as it is. And even if it comes down to it, hey, it's a service academy game. These games are almost always tight. I mean, Navy is also just not good this year, and we only beat them by a couple points, right? And we at home. So it's going to be a big game, obviously, but if there was a year that we were going to blow them out in Globe Life, it's going to be this year.
Yeah.
So the line is minus 285. The spread's -7 for Air Force. Honestly, I'd take that money winning by a touchdown in this game, especially with how well Brad Roberts is doing, how well Zeke Daniels is doing. Also, shout out David Cormier. We got Kyle Patterson, our star tight end, coming back in, who's averaging over 20 yards a catch. I mean, come on, if we throw the ball at all, Army's cornerbacks, their linebackers are not going to be able to stop these two guys. They're both over 6'4", and they're both over two. Kyle Patterson's like 240. Yeah, it's not going to happen. I'm telling you. I'd take an Air Force, obviously, because I'm an Air Force guy. But if there was a year that Army was going to get blown out, it'd be this year.
Yeah, I did pick a 14-point win for Air Force. And let's not forget that Army is letting up 29.4 points per game. So I'm with Luke for sure. Army is probably going to get blown out this game. And I can't wait to see it because it'd be a new college football experience for me. All right, well, take us off with this next game.
Yeah, we're gonna go back to the ACC, sorta. Number 4 Clemson traveling up to South Bend to take on Notre Dame. Clemson is actually a 3.5-point favorite, with ESPN having them as a 65% chance. You have DJ Uiagalelei with 1,800 yards, 17 touchdowns, about 400 with 350 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns, compared to Drew Pine, who's just under 1,200 yards, 13 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. I mean, you probably wondering why I chose this game, because even though Clemson's probably going to just absolutely demolish Notre Dame after what we've seen from Notre Dame so far this season, with the just a really embarrassing loss to Marshall in week 2. So, I mean, I'm taking Clemson. Don't get me wrong. They're going to put up, I think, more of a fight than what you would expect. But I think it's going to come down to Will Shipley. He struggled the last game or two, especially in that game versus Syracuse, where he fumbled for the first time in his career. But, it's a night game at Notre Dame Stadium. It's going to be a really hard environment, but I think Clemson's still going to come out on the top.
Yeah. I'm gonna agree with you. Clemson, I do see them winning this game. Honestly, looking at their schedule for the rest of the season, there's not really many games where I can see them losing other than South Carolina. And South Carolina has looked good. They are 5-3. I'm pretty sure they're ranked at the moment. But Clemson, they have looked good at times, and at times they have looked a bit overrated. But this Notre Dame game, Notre Dame has looked terrible. People are saying that they are starting to bounce back, but they just don't look good this year. So I'm going to take Clemson for sure. I'm loving what Will Shipley is doing this entire year. And Clemson has only allowed 20 points per game, and they've scored 37 per game. So it's looking good for Clemson because Notre Dame's defense allowing 22.1 points and their offense only producing 28.4. So, yeah, Clemson is definitely my pick. Luke.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to have Notre Dame as my pick here, but Notre Dame is so hit or miss. I mean, they had a good game against Ohio State, an unexplicable loss to Marshall. I mean, Air Force beat UNLV by more than Notre Dame did and let up less points. So even that win is just not even a good win for them. But then they came back and they beat Syracuse, who was on a run. As much as I would love to say that they're getting their stuff back together and that they have a chance against Clemson, who personally I think is completely overrated, I just don't see them losing this game. So as much as I want Clemson to lose, I don't think Notre Dame is going to pull this one out.
Yeah. Does JP have anything to say on this game?
Of course he does.
I'm going Notre Dame because I'm praying on Clemson's downfall, but probably Clemson's going to win. But go Notre Dame, go Irish.
Yeah. Hey, for me, looking at for TCU to get in the playoffs, I feel like the game Clemson will lose is the South Carolina game. So I'm with you, JP. I'm praying for Clemson's downfall. Will, I'm gonna let you take this next game also because it involves your team.
Yep. Before we do that, Texans field goal, so 21-17. We're still gonna have a chance. But it is a game that we look forward to almost every year outside of Auburn. And I would say Tennessee, but after this year, I'm not looking forward to that anymore. And that is LSU. First weekend of November is always the matchup. Like, you remember from a few years ago, the Joe Burrow versus Tua game. I was at that game. Sellout crowd, President Trump was there. It was probably one of the hardest environments, like the loudest I've ever seen Bryant Denny. And even to this day, I'll admit that's like one of the best college football games I've ever been to, and we lost that game. But it's in the past. Those quarterbacks are no longer there. Most of those players are no longer there. It is now, and LSU's head coach is in there. It's Brian Kelly now, who doesn't beat Nick Saban, even though he loves to think that he's a top tier coach. Alabama is a 13.5-point favorite with a 76% chance of winning on ESPN. Mike King, who I met at a party not that long ago, Bryce Young, 1,900 yards, 18 touchdowns, 3 interception with 137 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns, taking on a harder opponent with Jaden Daniels, who is 18-12 rushing, throwing yards, 12 touchdowns, 1 interception with 500 rushing yards and 9 touchdowns. So this is the problem that I saw we had with Tennessee, and that is trying to contain a dual threat quarterback. We struggled with Hendon Hooker, and he ended up we thought we would contain him on the run. He ended up throwing 5 touchdowns to Jalen Hyatt. I think we're going to try to do the same, but there is a new key opponent in this, and that is finally seeing Eli Ricks on our team. If you don't know, Eli Ricks was a top 10 recruit from the class of 2020, committed to LSU, didn't get the playing time. He transferred to Bama. He's been out up until the Mississippi State game, and he looked good in that game. I think traveling back to Baton Rouge, he's going to prove them that it was a mistake letting me go join one of your biggest rivals. And I think he's going to absolutely shut down LSU and their passing game. And yes, Jaden Daniels is their leading rusher as well, but I like Jameer. Like Jameer Gibbs is a lot better. Thank you, Wyatt. So no question, Alabama, Roll Tide, boys.
Yeah, for me, I could see Alabama getting upset this game, but I'm not going to pick that. I honestly think Alabama's going to win. And looking at Alabama's schedule for the rest of the year, they probably will win out, most likely, almost 100%. Because Ole Miss is probably the next toughest opponent they have, and Ole Miss, I'm just not. We've been over this millions of times. I'm just not a guy on Jackson Dart. Don't really think he's that good. And Bryce Young has looked good ever since he came back from an injury against Arkansas. So I feel like Alabama will probably cover and probably go on to win this game. Luke?
I'm rolling with the Tide on this game, baby. I think LSU is overrated at number 10. I don't really think they deserve a number 10 rating, if I'm going to be honest. I don't even want to say that this is the game for Alabama to lose. I really don't see them losing this at all. I mean, I think their next hardest game is probably going to be Ole Miss, although I also think Ole Miss is a little bit overrated. So I think they're going to win out the rest of the season, and they're definitely not going to lose to LSU this game.
Yeah. Hey, Will, do you have any nerves going into this game?
I do a little, just because LSU is usually one of those teams that can either be run very close with, or it's a absolute blowout, like we saw 2 years ago, the last time it was in Baton Rouge, where we had Devontae Smith on a masterclass of a game, which basically locked him up for the Heisman. But, knock on wood, Alabama has not lost in Baton Rouge since 2010. We are running a 5-game winning streak at Death Valley. And so.
Yeah. And also, the Texas A&M game kind of got to bring some light to this game as a team that's far superior, almost loses to a team that's way lesser than them. Yeah, so I could see LSU upsetting Alabama in this game, but I don't really think it's going to happen. Let's go to this last game, the game of the week. Number 1 Tennessee, which pains me to say, versus number 3 Georgia. Us Tennessee guys, me living in Tennessee for half of my life, and y'all two being born and raised in Tennessee, we know Tennessee fans suck. Just all around, they just suck. I call them the Cowboys fans of the college football world. Coming from Luke Leon being a Cowboys fan, you could probably agree.
Yeah.
But Georgia is an 8-point favorite in this game. This game is going to be closer than that, honestly. I feel like it might be a field goal or a last-second touchdown type of game. We have Heisman favorite Hendon Hooker, who's 156 for 219 with 2,338 yards, 21 touchdown, only one interception, 338 rushing yards, 4 rushing touchdowns, going against Stetson Bennett, the mailman, 181 for 268 with 2,349 yards, more yards than Hendon Hooker, which is crazy, but 9 more touchdowns. 9 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 117 yards with 5 rushing touchdowns. So for me, this is, oh my gosh, this game is so hard to pick. And I'm going to have to go. I'm going to go with Georgia. Just because their defense, even though they're losing Nolan Smith, I feel like their defense is just still good. They have not as good of a defense from last year, but they still have a really good defense. Will, how do you pick this game?
So I'm going to take you back to 2014, where a team that basically came out of nowhere with a top talented quarterback ended up being the #1 overall team in the first playoff poll. Their first game after the initial playoff poll, they got demolished by a much superior team that's like a more well-established. And I'm talking about 2014 Mississippi State with Dak Prescott. That, and they played their first week after the playoff poll, Alabama. What happened? Bama dominated. I don't see any difference between 2014 and 2022. And this game is in Athens as well. Give me the Dogs. They're a 75% chance of winning. It is going to be somewhat competitive, especially with Nolan Smith being out, but I see history repeating itself. Tennessee fans, go cry about it. Big game boomer, suck it. Give me the Dogs.
Oh, Luke.
Listen, I'm going all with Georgia on this. I'm going to be honest. The mailman's going to come through. Okay. Tennessee's letting up over 300 pass yards a game. I'm not saying Stetson Bennett is the Jesus Christ of passing the football, because he's not. But what I'm saying is that Georgia allows 177 pass yards a game. Tennessee allows almost double that. Okay. Hendon Hooker is a fantastic quarterback, but going up against this Georgia defense, I think he's going to have a lot of issues. And I think it's going to even the playing field a lot of the time. Georgia's great defense is going to stomp Hendon Hooker a little bit. And Stetson Bennett's going to have a little bit of time to shine, a little bit of wiggle room to shine. So I think it's kind of a toss up with Stetson Bennett. When it comes to the rush game too, oh man, God, I think this game's going to be really close. I think that taking the -8, this game's going to be, I think this game's going to be under a touchdown or less for sure. Touchdown or a field goal game. Like Bryce said, it's either going to be a field goal or it's going to be a last-second touchdown drive. But I think I'm going to go with the Dogs on this. I'm praying on Tennessee's downfall. I really am. Growing up a Memphis fan, I'm praying on Tennessee's downfall. Give me the Dogs, especially at home. Wolf, baby.
Yeah, and the loss of Takeoff. The Migos was a big part of Georgia. And them winning the national championship and having great years in the past few years, and they were there for most of those. Does JP have a pick for this game?
JP, Tennessee, Georgia, what are you feeling?
This is probably the biggest game of the year. It's not probably the biggest game of the year. This is the biggest game of the year.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go. Actually, retrospectively, let me make my Alabama LSU pick. I have Alabama in a close one, very similar to their win at Texas A&M.
Okay.
And then also, but as a TCU fan, I like low-key want Alabama to lose. Sorry, Will, because it makes us look better. TCU, or not TCU, sorry. I just got frogs on the brain, Tennessee, Georgia is going to be. I honestly have no clue. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, I genuinely have no clue. Like, this is the biggest enigma game of all time, and I absolutely cannot wait to watch it.
Yeah, me too.
I'm going Georgia at home though. I'm going Georgia at home. Yeah. So yeah, that's my prediction. Luke was making some good points. I mean, Stetson is really good at throwing the ball. I think Hendon Hooker may have a few problems with that Georgia defense. I don't think they'll last long or be something that he just absolutely gets dogged down by. I think the receiver's name's Hyatt, right?
Yeah,
Jaden Hyatt.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
had an amazing season.
Tennessee's going to have something up their sleeve. Heupel's going to have something up his sleeve that kind of surprised the Georgia defense. But this is a war of attrition, so I'm going to take the Dogs. And I'll even give a score prediction. I think this game is going to be 42-38 Dogs.
Hey, I like that. And also, I would love to add, even though most people say Stetson Bennett's not a good quarterback, Stetson Bennett sucks or whatever, he has been consistent in every big game that Georgia's had, except for last year's Alabama game. He's been very consistent, and he is the right man for this program and for this play style that Georgia has. So I can't blame him. Stetson Bennett, he has more yards than Hendon Hooker. He might not have the touchdowns, but he has been a great asset to Georgia for the past 2 years.
I think that the mailman is kind of like the Ryan Tannehill of the Georgia offense. He's not very good, but I mean, he can be consistent sometimes, and when he is, the team is good.
Yeah.
What can you say?
Yeah. Will you have anything else before we sound off?
Two quick things. One, Texas gave up a touchdown and a 2-point conversion, so the game is now 29-17. Secondly, the last two games are basically deciding who's going to go to Atlanta in the SC Championship. And so I think what if all goes to plan after what we said, we're going to see another Alabama Georgia, and I think that's probably the more exciting game looking forward to.
I don't know. The Tennessee Georgia game might be a little bit exciting than the Alabama Georgia, just because we've seen it time after time.
All I know is if it is Georgia, or I mean, if it is Tennessee, and we end up playing, knock on wood to win, I'll have my cigar ready. I want that rematch. I want that beat down just to rub it in Tennessee fans' face.
Yeah. Do you have any big game boomer pack that you want to smoke tonight, man?
Who is Oklahoma even playing this week? Are they even relevant anymore?
No, they're not relevant because everyone found out that Dylan Gabriel is not that good, and everyone's just been on his hype train since he was at UCF.
Okay, for reference, they played Baylor this weekend.
Well, we got two mediocre teams that no one really cares about this year. Baylor was good last year, and they've fallen off a cliff ever since, honestly.
Yeah, but so Big Game Boomer did say that the playoff committee got this first week right. They're wrong, and I'm about to prove him wrong. I'm about to prove him wrong as well.
All right. Tell us why they're wrong and why he's wrong. Will
Tennessee does not deserve to be number one. Yes, they beat Alabama, but who else have they beaten? That's worth something. Georgia has actually been putting up good. They demolished the top 10 team out of Oregon. Ohio State is putting up 40 points, basically putting up 40 points a game outside of the Notre Dame game. Michigan has one of the best running backs in the country. TCU has probably been one of the more underdog teams, and obviously Alabama. I'm not trying to be biased about this, but I think Alabama is Alabama. But if I were to really rank the top 6 as it stands, I think it would go Ohio State, Georgia, Tennessee, then Michigan, and then you can interchange between Alabama and oh wait, I didn't even mention Clemson yet. Sure, I might need to rethink all this.
They're gonna lose this week.
I would put Clemson on the outside at 7, just because ACC is kind of that weaker conference.
Yeah, they don't really have any staple wins other than Syracuse. Most of the teams that you named has a win versus a very good opponent. Clemson has a lot of wins against ranked teams in the earliest stages. Alabama has beaten who have they beaten? They've beaten a pretty good Mississippi State team. They've lost to Tennessee.
We beat Texas.
Yeah, beat Texas, who was good at the time, and they're still ranked. And Texas is the thing about Texas, they're a good team, but they just lose games that either they should win or just close games. TCU has shown that they have beaten great Big 12 teams in Oklahoma State and Kansas State, Texas. I think Oklahoma might have been ranked going into that game. I feel like they've won more ranked games than most of the teams in the playoffs. Ohio State has shown that they are dominant on offense and defense, and Michigan's shown that they are also dominant offense and defense. Honestly, we could see a Big Ten team win the national championship. I picked Ohio State earlier this year, but I am really looking forward. I know, Will, you're not going to like this. I want to see someone in the playoffs other than Alabama and Clemson.
That's fair. I mean, given that Alabama in the 8 years of the previous playoffs, Alabama's been in it 7 times.
Yeah.
Clemson's been in it, I think, 6 times. So I understand. Like, I'm not trying to be like, that obnoxious Alabama fan, even though low-key I am. But I get told this all the time at work. Nick Saban is not going to last forever. So as much as that pains me to say.
Yeah. As a Patriots fan, Tom Brady didn't last forever. Bill Belichick, he might be there. He might die, and we have his brain and have him in like some type of robot cyborg type deal, and he would be coaching us for the rest of his existence, I guess.
Same could be said about Saban.
Yeah. But thank everyone for watching. Luke, thank you for coming on this week. See you tomorrow. And make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on the post notification, and see y'all next week. Peace.
Go Texans.